Morsel, Morsels. Steve here from Modo Morsels. We need to talk about MeshOp stacks. Specifically, I want to talk about using them as item presets. But first, to review. MeshOp stacks are like subroutines or macros for mesh operations. If you are using MeshOps at all, then you should probably get into the habit of using them. Consider this dungeon-o-matic scene, which has a top-level stack. Inside we find two substacks. The first one, i.e. the bottom one, creates a plane, assigns a material to it, lo and behold, a dungeon, and then sets up a selection set. The selection specifies where the corridors and rooms will be and is used in the second stack. In the second stack, we delete everything that is not in the selection using the selection set from the first stack and an invert selection operation. Then we bevel the walls up, and next we assign some materials to the newly created walls and ceiling, and finally turn the whole thing inside out. Marvellous! In this second example, I've connected two meshes to the same MeshOp stack so that the operations are shared. All of the MeshOps in the stack will be applied to both of the meshes, and changes to the operations will be reflected in both of them. This includes adding new operations to the stack, for example. So, what did we learn? 1. MeshOp stacks are containers for ordered sequences of mesh operations, evaluated bottom-up, like everything else in Modo. 2. Like subroutines in programming languages, they can be nested. 3. The order of operations is explicit, both in the mesh operations viewport and in the schematic view. And 4. They can be shared between meshes. But there's one more thing, and that's what this morsel is really about. We can put MeshOp stacks into assemblies and convert them into items which can then be saved to a file and reused as often as you like. One of the problems with the transform operation is that it has no selection option. By default it affects the entire mesh, although we can change that to a weight map, vertex selection and so on. This gives us a way through because we can assign a selection set, give it a name, and use that selection set in the transform. Now any selections that we attach to the assigned selection set will be used to transform the vertices. So let's try and make this into a reusable assembly. We'll start by creating our MeshOp stack, then add the assigned selection set and transform operations, making sure that they are in the right order. Next, create a subassembly to put everything into, and give it a sensible name. It's empty at the moment, but we will shortly be moving our MeshOp stack in. Set the name in the assigned selection set, and then in the general influence set the type to vertex selection set and pick the name that we previously set. I generally disconnect everything external before adding the nodes to the assembly. I find it tends to work better. Select the 3 nodes and move them into the assembly. Back inside the assembly, we need to expose ourselves, specifically all the useful controls such as the effector, fall-offs and selection relationships. We might as well expose the general influence controls as well. The assembly is now ready for conversion into an item. Select the MeshOp Stack option and the MeshOp Stack node within the assembly, and bang, we now have an item alias. But does it work? Let's reconnect the effector, the geometry, and add a selection operation. I'll just add the top vertex to the selection. The moment of truth. Select the effector and hit W to move it, and we now have selections on our transformations. The final step is to save the alias. Again, I will disconnect everything just to be safe. Then select the item and navigate to the Save Assembly Preset menu item and save. We should now be able to reuse the alias whenever we need selection-based transformations. How's that for deep magic?